I'm sitting here in the dark at 1 a.m. To tell you all about the different templates for characters in the Dresden Files RPG. Now, templates are what you choose to give you an idea of what powers, stunts, and skills you might need to take to make the character you're thinking of. So I'm just going to go through them in order and give you a basic idea of what they can do, but this is by no means an in-depth analysis. Keep in mind, templates are why I like the Dresden Files RPG much better than certain other Fate games, including Fate Core. It gives you a lot of structure to work with. So the first is the pure mortal. This is someone with no supernatural abilities whatsoever. The trade-off for that is that you are going to have a ton of fate points to play around with during a gaming session. And every new session, you are going to get a bunch of fate points back. You can influence things much more easily due to this. Like, pure mortals actually get a +2 bonus to their starting refresh, which means that even when they take a bunch of their stunts, they still have 2 additional fate points basically to play around with. So the next template is the Champion of God. This is one of the more powerful templates you can choose. For reference, in the novels, there are only 3 of these guys. Ever. And while you can use this template as a more, how do I put this, as a more generic thing where you could apply your own thing to it, it's meant here to represent an organization called the Knights of the Cross. Think of them as paladins, basically. They serve God, and by that I mean the Christian God. They serve the church. They exist solely to combat another group called the Denarians, which you do not get the option to play as, for reasons that I'll get into when we cover them eventually. Right, so these guys are intense. They get powers such as Bless This House, meaning that their home is safe for the most part. Guide My Hand, they're more accurate. Holy Touch, they can disrupt evil creatures. And Righteousness, which is pretty self-explanatory. It tells you important skills that you'll need to take, and in this case it only asks you for Conviction. At a refresh cost total of -5, this is for moderate to powerful level campaigns, and you'll still have a lot of fate points to play around with and much more powerful ones. The next template is Changeling, a favorite of mine considering my World of Darkness preferences. A Changeling is someone who is half human and half fae. One of the most interesting parts of the Changeling template is that at any point you can choose to give up your character and become truly a fairy. Or truly mortal, but in that case you would get to keep your character. So at any point you can basically say to the GM, hey, we have hit this spot, we are not going to win this. I am going to give up my character, I'm going to become the true fae, be it a troll or whatever, and I'm going to save the day, but I have to turn in my character. It's basically the way it works. So this is really open to interpretation. Changelings can be born of any fairy, which is interesting. So you need to really work with your GM to get work on the supernatural powers you're going to have as a result. So the required... Oh, actually, I don't think they have any required skills. However, the recommended one is inhuman speed, strength, toughness, or recovery, physical immunity, glamours or fairy magic, And then underneath glamours, of course, Seelie magic and Unseelie magic. Those are the two fairy courts. Physical traits such as wings, claws, diminutive size, or hulking size. And like I said, not all of them is a must. So it also goes out of its way to tell you that characters called Saiyans, which do not get their own template, are not changelings. So Saiyan is half supernatural, half human, but a changeling is explicitly half fairy. So they're going to have some stuff. The most versatile template besides the pure mortal is up next, to that being the emissary of power. This represents a character who has some kind of ability that they received from being basically the lackey, or they've made a deal with something very powerful. So this one says you must have a high concept that matches the bargain you've made. It's very, very strange. So the only power you actually need to take is called Marked by Power, which is at a -1 refresh cost, so you have a ton of stuff to play around with if you'd like. The next template is the Focused Practitioner. This is somebody who does one type of magic very, very well. A pyromancer, an ectomancer. Lends itself very well to the imagination. I said that these templates provide some structure, not a whole lot. There's a whole box on page 77 about what building practitioner is like, and it's a lot of information, and I still have much more to go through. But basically, you must take one or both of the channeling power or the ritual power, both of which have to do with magic and how you cast it. So you're going to have at least a refresh of -2, meaning once again, you're going to have a lot of customization to play around with. Next template, Knight of a Fairy Court. There are 2 fairy courts, winter and summer. There is only ever one knight of each court at any given time. So really, this is why it's very important to work with your group on what everyone is playing. 3 people can't play the Knight of Summer, for instance. This one has a -5 refresh cost, which is the same as the Champion of God template. So you can see these are very powerful things. Your character must take the Seelie or Unseelie magic powers and the Marked by Power ability. So in addition, it recommends things like Inhuman Toughness, Inhuman Recovery, Glamours. Maybe your deal with the Fae allows you to cast spells. Okay, so the next one is the Lycanthrope. And to be completely honest, I don't know why these are playable characters. Lycanthropes, by their very nature, as I mentioned in my werewolf video, are beings that their minds transform rather than their bodies. They're very violent. They're very, very aggressive and territorial. They have little control over themselves when they're angry. They lend themselves very well to getting a lot of fate points because their high concept is going to be something like Lycanthrope, which by its very nature means the GM can just throw fate points at you like candy to make you rage out. So you must have the following: Pack Instincts, Echoes of the Beast, Human Form with the Involuntary Change catch, which actually gives you refresh back. You must also take Inhuman Strength, Inhuman Recovery. So all in all, your refresh cost is going to be -4. So while you have a lot of that stuff, you get a little bit of fate points back because of the involuntary nature of this template. It's interesting to see at the table, at the very least. All right. So the next is Minor Talent. These are the weakest of the spellcasters. This is somebody who, instead of having dominion over one type of magic, has dominion over one spell, maybe two. This is somebody who might have the ability to, say, make dice always turn up the right way, or someone who is very, very good at hexing or making technology stop working. Again, there's a lot to play around with here, but unfortunately, it it really doesn't give you many options. You can do a spell. The minimum refresh cost is -1, and it says the total cost rarely rises as high as -2. This is basically a pure mortal with one trick that they can pull out. It's actually kind of interesting, in my opinion. So basically, the way these abilities work is you have to pick one supernatural power that costs no more than 2 and usually 1. So this is going to be something like inhuman toughness or some weird special kind of magic. The next template is Red Court Infected, somebody who has been fed the blood of a Red Court vampire but has yet to kill someone in a bloodthirst yet. This is another one of those characters where if you ever lose that battle, if you ever kill someone and drink of their blood, and it specifically has to be their lifeblood, so they have to die, you will transform into a Red Court vampire, you will lose all power as a player character and have to make a new one. So you have to take the following powers to do this. Addictive Saliva, Blood Drinker, Feeding Dependency, which gives you a refresh back, and at least one of Inhuman Recovery, Speed, Strength, or Toughness. And like it says, if at any point this character kills another human and drinks its blood, he must immediately become a Red Court vampire and becomes an NPC. So one thing I forgot to mention is that with Inhuman Toughness, Speed, Strength, Recovery, etc., there's something called the Catch, which makes it cost more or less fate points. So in this case, it's going to say things like maybe the catch is true faith, sunlight, holy water, things like that. The next template is Sorcerer. We're getting to the really high level ones now. Like I said, they are not wizards. They're not as powerful as wizards, but they can kick the shit out of anyone else really easily. So they must take Evocation and Thaumaturgy. Those are the two powers you must take to cast spells. Everything after that is up to you. It comes with a -6 refresh cost, so in mid-level games you're not going to be able to do anything else, and in higher level games there is not a whole lot that you can play around with. You might even want to hold on to those just to a refresh. The next template, we're back down to low power, True Believer. This is someone who is a mortal but is devout beyond all belief. So they kind of have the same abilities as the Champion of God power, but very template, but very toned down. So they might have the power to turn back certain supernatural creatures, but on their own, they're not going to be able to take them on head to head. So the next template is Wereform, someone who is kind of like a minor talent. They have one trick, but that one trick is turning into an animal of some kind. And you really get to choose and play around with what you have as powers, as long as the GM approves. But you must take Beast Change, Echoes of the Beast, Human Form, and at least 2 of, and it gives you a very long list of powers to choose from, in addition to whatever else you might take. So the minimum refresh cost is -3, but it's going to be a lot harder. Werewolves, for instance, are looking at -6 to -7. All right. We're catching up to the end here. The next is White Court Vampire, another high level character. We're looking at a minimum refresh of -7. This is someone who can incite emotion. They feed off of emotions of humans. Their catch is going to be the opposite of that. So a White Court who feeds on sexual energy or lust is going to be held at bay by true love. One who feeds on despair will be held back by true, I guess, courage. No, that's fear. I digress. That's for you to work out with your GM. So an example of this is Thomas in the Dresden Files novels. He's very strong, he's very fast, but every time he uses those powers, he gets hungry. So you must take the following abilities. Emotional Vampire, Human Guise, Incite Emotion, Feeding Dependency, Inhuman Recovery, with a catch, Inhuman Speed, Inhuman Strength. It's a lot. Like I said, high level play. White Court Vampires don't even lend themselves well to mid-tier. The next is White Court Virgin. Unlike other vampires, White Court are born, not made. However, they are basically just mortals until, just like the Red Court, they have their first feast. They kill someone with their powers. So a White Court Virgin is only going to have the Emotional Vampire and Incite Emotion abilities. Which is a refresh cost of -2. If you go any further, you have to become a White Court Vampire. If you ever kill someone with your powers, you're going to become a White Court Vampire. So you don't want to take additional abilities as a White Court Virgin, because if you ever are forced to become the White Court Vampire, you're probably going to go over your minimum or over the refresh allowed by the game and become an NPC. This game is very, very brutal a little bit, but it's almost always player choice driven death. So the last template is the Wizard. This is going to cost a minimum refresh of -7. They are on the same playing field as White Court Vampires. Wizards must take Evocation, Thaumaturgy, the Sight, meaning that they can see supernatural things as they truly are. Soul Gaze, if you make eye contact with a wizard, you're both going to see each other's true natures, whether you want to or not. And the last one is Wizard's Constitution. Wizards are able to recover faster than the average human. A wizard is going to be something that is awesome. You can sling spells like it's nobody's business. However, due to the nature of the refresh cost, you aren't going to have much left to play around with. Even if you're playing at say, the highest level play you can start out with, you're probably not going to be able to play a wizard that also can turn himself into a wolf. It's just not going to happen. I know this one was longer. Thank you very much. I'm sorry that we didn't go into these in great detail, but I'm hoping that we can come back and visit all of these individual templates later. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great evening.